Ow. It feels like it's been ages since I've actually been able to announce a new game. This is Kinstrife, a new upcoming medieval title. Medieval strategy RPG with revolutionary physical simulated combat. Become a wandering knight journeying to castles, towns in your quest for fortune and glory. Fighting in battles and tournaments. Build your wealth, equipment and following, and carve out your destiny in time of strife. This is a description that we've probably heard quite a few times. Do you remember of Kings and Men? That was a game that kind of tried to do something a little bit similar. But this time, we're definitely sticking within the single-player realms. You see, so many games, especially in the medieval genre, really try and push that multiplayer scene. Because what more do you want than running around with 100 other players, hacking and slashing strangers as they cry over their voice over IP? Trust me, this is what I get off to on a Friday. But this kind of physics-based combat is going to be single-player only. At least for now. This game, despite the way it currently looks, has actually been developed for more than a decade. Now, of course, this is a small title to start with, and developers are not even working full-time on it, but it actually started off with Mount and Blade modders, a lot like many other titles. The original Mount and Blade had a plethora of incredible modifications that changed anything from slight tweaks to the game engine to full overhauls. Well, the best ones being like Lord of the Rings. They weren't working on that one. They did some Crusader stuff. I don't know. They may be into Deus Vault kind of thing. Let's not get into that. But this non-linear single-player medieval role-playing game is really focusing on the simulated combat. You have a retinue of troops which will all be AI that you can build through your game. A little bit like recruiting companions that all have their own skills, assets, and of course arms and armor to bring to battles. Build them up over time into this world and take them into missions. And whilst the closest single-player medieval experience that we have to take a reference is Kingdom Come, Kin Strife is not that. Did I even mention the game name at the start? It's called Kinstrife. Yet despite it not being exactly like Kingdom Come Deliverance in terms of its story, it is going to be a completely single-player experience. Think of it more of a companion simulator rather than a lone wolf like KCD. So how big are these battles going to be? Well, so far they've managed to get up to 100 simulated AI or units on the battlefield at once, at least in a playable version with this combat. And that's something we need to talk about. I've mentioned it multiple times, even just in the start of this video, but Kin Strife is really trying to push this physics-based sword fighting. Now, there are other games that have done this before. Hellish Court is a great example, however, that is very much only sword fighting. Two soldiers side by side, dodging back and forth, much like your classic fighting game, but using physics-based sword fighting. There's also Half Sword that looks actually kind of similar to what we have here. Half Sword is an experience that... it's just an experience. But this is the main point with physics-based combat, and whilst they're trying to push it really, really hard, it always seems to end up looking like this. Just a little bit too janky for my liking. That's not to say it can't work, and this being the main focus of Kin Strife means that hopefully the developers, with the experience that they do have over a decade of development and modding in the background, if anyone can do it, it's probably them. But I would be lying if I said that it didn't look somewhat janky so far, especially compared to other combat systems. I think the most successful so far is probably Mordhau, with its incredibly slick first-person sword fighting. Slicing left, right, center, ducking, dodging over things. Of course, being able to use different projectiles as well as throwing swords, changing from Mordhau grips to half-swording, and different variations in every single weapon. It is probably the most in-depth sword fighting simulator we have, and I don't think Kin Strife is going to come close. Don't get me wrong, they're not exactly trying to, but whilst there are games like that exist, that have such a focus on sword fighting, that have been famed for it, why would you play something that's not quite as polished? Well, surely there's got to be other aspects to this game. And that's what they're going for. This is building up your companions and gaining your renown. A little bit of a mix between a Kingdom Come Deliverance and a Mount and Blade. Finding companions that you can travel the world with in order to help you complete these quests rather than going at it alone. A lot of the early development test footage shows off this strange integration of physics-based movement. I guess you can call this movement. Look at him go. He looks like me in Prism. Although... me and Prism often gets put on some sort of list. As we push forward to some of the gameplay, we can see a little bit more when it comes to the larger scale battles, and this is what worries me. Because don't get me wrong, it looks like an absolute whale of a time, but it is just a mess. All the AI are just going at it with each other. Okay, we don't want the one-on-one combat of like a Total War Rome 2 that feels completely unrealistic to the time period and the way that battles are fought, but this doesn't feel like it has any cohesion at all. Yet despite my negativity, I'm somewhat interested because I think it's been a long time since we've had any sort of new medieval games, especially ones made by such a small studio. It is going to be a full open world, being able to immerse yourself in this atmospheric medieval world as you can freely roam between unique historical locations. You can create and train your own knights and skills. Of course, as we mentioned, you have that retinue, but you yourself will start off as a squire and gain to become some Heath Ledger lookalike as well. Set within 13th century Germany amidst power struggles of great houses. You will be traversing the Rhine, taking on other lords, other companions, and of course bandits along your way. There is very little in terms of how this story is going to progress, but it looks like we're getting more and more information coming out very soon. I'm going to be following up on Kin Strife in the future because I think there's quite a lot of good stuff here. And whilst I've been a little bit negative about the combat, just because we have some fantastic comparisons, for an indie game, it looks like they're going for a different route. And that's all that's really important. Getting the same thing over and over again is never really a positive. So at least trying something different, no matter if it fails or if it's successful, is at least an interesting point. But hey, I guess I'll see you on the battlefield when we do carve each other's eyes out. Or what is this? Why are they trying to tip over jelly babies? And I've had a nightmare like this.